Welcome aboard to another exciting episode of the GSI podcast, where we explore the latest and hottest topics in renewable energy technology, policy, climate change, and environmental issues, and also any other subject that we find interesting around sustainability. Today we are diving into the world of electric vehicles, a topic that's charging ahead with innovation and revolutionizing transportation as we know it. Joining me is a special co-host, Sherry Williams, the founder and CEO of Vehicle, an innovative peer-to-peer car renting platform that's tailored to the unique needs of the Caribbean market. But we will hear more from Sherry about that as we go further into the conversation. And our guest, well, there's no better one to guide us through the electrifying world of EVs than Andy Latham, a seasoned expert who spent years crisscrossing the globe teaching folks how to maintain and fix electric vehicles. With his wealth of experience and passion for sustainability, Andy is here to shed light on the latest innovation, trends, and challenges that are shaping the future of transportation. But before we get started, don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel for more captivating content. And you can also find us on Apple Podcasts, Audible, Amazon, and iHeartRadio. So Andy, thank you for stopping by today for what promises to be an electrifying conversation.
Wayne, it is a pleasure to be here. It's a pleasure to join you on your podcast.
Thank you. And Sherry, welcome also as the first time as my co-host on this platform.
Thank you for having me.
All right. So let's get this conversation started. So Andy, can you give us like some brief overview of your experience with electric vehicles and what drew you to them?
I'll actually go a little bit further back, and I started working on cars. I left school at the age of 16 and started working on cars over 40 years ago. It doesn't give away too much about my age. Came up through the retail side of the industry, then joined what was Norwich Union, now Aviva, the biggest automotive insurer in the UK, initially as an engineer inspecting accident damaged vehicles, and then as compliance manager for their salvage operation, dealing with disposed vehicles. And during that time, electric vehicles started becoming a thing, and we started having to dispose of them. And then 10 years ago, when Aviva decided to outsource all of our work and lay myself and all my team off, I decided to start working on my own company. And over the last 10 years, that has morphed into a training company for electric and hybrid vehicles. And at one end, I work with the scrap and the recycling industry, who are taking these vehicles apart and recycling the components from within the vehicles. At the other end, I work with universities, research and development facilities who are looking at new technology, new things, new equipment that will get in vehicles in the next 4 or 5 years' time. And then everybody else in between, collision repair centres, mechanical repair centres, and lots of others, teaching and educating them on electric and hybrid vehicles, how they work, how to work on them without killing themselves. So that's a very brief summary of my career. So that's me. I'm based in the UK, and as Wayne says, I travel the world. So, there are some compensations for the job I do. I get to go to places that I would never, ever have been to before. But absolutely amazing, Wayne.
Okay, well, obviously you've had quite a lot of experience. The training has taken you all over the world. And we met in Jamaica when you came to Jamaica 2 years ago to do a train-the-trainer program there. That's how we first met. And as of right now, I think Jamaica is seeing a huge influx of electric vehicles. That's actually where Sherry is right now in launching her business Vehicle, and she will tell us more about that later. Sherry, do you want to give us an introduction about your company now as we continue into the conversation?
Sure, no problem. As Wayne mentioned, my name is Sherry Williams, founder of Vehicle, a peer-to-peer car renting platform in the Caribbean, the first of its kind. And so what we found out is that locals are looking for better ways to rent to travelers and vice versa. And so we've created a platform that connects both sides of the market to transact in a more efficient, more affordable, and much safer manner. So if you think about Airbnb, it's Airbnb for cars in the Caribbean. That's what we've built. And as we're having this conversation on EVs, I just have a question for you, Andy. So EV adoption is growing, but maybe not at the pace or how quickly as we would want. So can you give us some insights into like some of the misconceptions that people have about electronic vehicles?
Absolutely, yeah. And there's a lot of misinformation out there around these vehicles, and a lot of them is that these vehicles don't work for the lifestyle. They don't work for what they want. The vast majority of people on a daily basis drive less than 30 miles, 50 kilometers a day, and an electric vehicle for their normal day-to-day use is absolutely perfect, because if you've got 300 kilometers of range on your battery, you only need to charge a couple of times a week. Yes, on a longer journey, it might be necessary that you've got to stop and charge. But how often do you do a long journey? Maybe twice a year, or something like that. But yeah, that's one misconception. The other one is that after 5 or 7 years, you're going to have to replace the battery. No, it's not happening. Not happening at all. We're seeing in the industry, we're seeing batteries last not just the lifetime of the vehicle, but actually way beyond the lifetime of the vehicle, because they're going, once the vehicle reaches end of life, they're going into second use. They're going into other use as static storage for wind farms or solar farms or a solar PV array on your house. People say it's expensive to charge. Yeah, that might be the case if you're using a publicly available rapid charger. But if you're charging at home or you're charging at work, it is far, far less than gasoline or diesel. So it's a lot cheaper to run, less servicing, and so on. So yes, there are a lot of misconceptions, but predominantly, and I'm what I call a petrol head. I love my cars and I love driving cars, and the sound of a really high performance engine is beautiful, and you miss the sound. But actually, when you've driven an electric vehicle and you've driven one for some distance, you get so used to the silence, the quietness of it. It is unbelievable. And you then get back into a car with an internal combustion engine and you're immediately hit by this wall of noise that happens when you drive a petrol or a diesel. And you think, oh, can I go back to my nice quiet electric one, please?
Thank you for answering that. All right, so piggybacking off of that, right? What do you see as the challenge in terms of educating consumers on the benefits of EVs? Like, what's stopping the adoption to move at a faster pace?
Any change, that people have in their lives is, there's three types of people, three types of person. There's those people that will change straight away, the early adopters, the people who are open to this. The second group, the largest group, is those who need a little bit of extra work, a little bit of persuasion, a little bit of just education. Let's put it in those terms. And then the last group are those people who will never change, or will only change when they're pulled kicking and screaming into that change. And that's true in life. It doesn't matter what you're doing. And what we have here is a complete mind shift in how we use our vehicles. This is almost akin to back in the early 1900s when they changed from horse and cart to internal combustion engine. And it's very, very similar to that. And it's a fundamental shift in how we use our vehicles. And yeah, we're going to get people who are going to be resistant to it. We're going to get people who won't like it. We're going to get people who need a bit of persuasion. But yes, and brand new, the purchase price is a lot more than the purchase price of an equivalent petrol or diesel. Used market, not so much of an issue. But as more and more of these vehicles come onto the marketplace, the differential, the difference between petrol and diesel and electric is going to get closer and closer and closer. And I just turn around to a lot of people, I say, drive one. Go and drive one for a day. And then come back and tell me what you think. And pretty much everybody that I talk to when I say, when I do that, they go away and do that, and they come back and go, wow, they are amazing. And all it takes is a day driving one of these vehicles, and a lot of people come back with a completely different view.
But Andy, in terms of the misconceptions that Sherry asked you about just now, right? The infrastructure around electric vehicles. A few weeks ago I flew into Florida and I booked a rental car. I didn't realize that it was an EV that I reserved. And when I got to the counter, the guy asked me, informed me that I had an electric vehicle. So I told him, no, I didn't want an electric vehicle because I don't know where the charging stations are. And I'm going to be driving up and down Florida, right? And I don't think, based on my schedule, I had enough time to really stop for 2 or 3 hours to charge the electric vehicle. First, I have to find where the charging stations are, right? And then I had to stop for 2 or 3 hours to charge electric vehicles. And then, be on my way again. And then I'm thinking in my head, what if the car runs out of charge while I'm driving it, right? So even for someone like myself, who is a big advocate for EVs and stuff like that, in terms of the widespread adoption for electric vehicles, what do you think is missing in terms of even the infrastructure around EVs and so forth?
Well, let's take each of those a little bit at a time. Right now, electric vehicles work for quite a lot of people, but they don't work for some. And obviously, in your situation there, when that one you were just explaining with the rental car, that didn't work for you because of the tight schedule that you had and the timelines and the amount of and the distance you were going to travel. My own car is a plug-in hybrid. I don't have an electric car of my own purely because I am doing very, very big distances. I'm doing a lot of traveling, and my car's 4 years old. It's got 95,000 miles on it in 4 years. Now, if I had an electric car, I would have to, when I'm doing a long distance, I'd have to plan my route and stop at the appropriate time to when I need the charge. When I bought that car 4 years ago, the infrastructure wasn't there. It probably is there now, but I'm not going to change the car yet. I'm keeping it for a little while longer. But that's the situation. Next one, you said stopping for a couple of hours. If you find a rapid charger with a lot of these new vehicles, you can get an 80% charge in less than 30 minutes. Now, that 80% charge could be enough to give you another 200, 250 miles, depends on the car. But, 200, 250 miles, 400 kilometers in 20 to 30 minutes. If you've done that level of driving, if you've done that distance, you want to stop. You need to stop. Because if you've just done 200 miles, 250 miles, 400 kilometers in a car, your body says, I need to stop. You stop, you have a coffee, you let the car charge up, you relax a little bit, you can carry on. So that's that. So let's get over this. It's difficult when you're in an area you don't know. They give you an electric car, and you've then got to find the charging stations and all the rest of it. And a lot of that is information. But if this is your permanent car, this is your normal car, over 90% of the charging that people do is done at home or it's done at work. It's not done as a rapid charge somewhere down the road. And what's better? Your car is sat still 90% of the time that you own it. So 90% of the time you own a vehicle, it stood still. Why not have it topping up whilst it stood still, sat at home? Mine did last night, and it topped up last night. And I can now drive it. What's better? So, yes, for some people, it works brilliantly. For other people, it doesn't. My wife would absolutely, an electric car would be perfect for her. It's very rare that she does more than 20 miles in a day. Spot on, absolutely perfect for her. For me, no, because of the type of use that I give it.
But you see, in the Caribbean region, right? And not just in the Caribbean, but in the United States, I guess in most places around the world also, we're talking about phasing out fossil fuels. We're talking about the adoption of electric vehicles. It probably may take maybe 20, 30, 50 years for us to completely be done with the regular traditional combustion engine vehicles. So what do you think, right? As some of the what advancements do you anticipate in the EV technology within the next 5 to 10 years in order to facilitate this widespread adoption of electric vehicles, to eliminate some of those, so that more people can be driving EVs?
Well, there's a couple of things here. Number one is legislation. So number one is the fact that governments are legislating us out of internal combustion engine vehicles. So that's number one. Number two is battery technology is changing all the time. And batteries that can have longer range, can charge quicker, are all in product or in development now. And in a few years' time, we're going to have some very significant battery chemistry changes, which are going to impact that. But the other thing as well is that we're actually getting now we're starting to see cheaper electric vehicles coming onto the marketplace. The problem we had is initially one of the first electric vehicles was the Tesla Model S, and brilliant car. Tesla is a disruptor, and they came in the marketplace and they were competing against Mercedes, Audi, BMW, and people like that, high end of the marketplace. So everybody decided to try and compete against the Model S. Then Tesla brought out the Model 3, bit cheaper, bit smaller, still good, and everybody went to compete against the Model 3. So we've got a whole batch of vehicles in that similar price range. Now we're starting to get vehicles coming in which are much, much cheaper. And we're talking in Europe, 25,000 euros. Those sort of figures, 25,000, 30,000 euros, as opposed to 45 or 50,000. And that's going to bring much more people into the marketplace because the value, the cost of those vehicles is coming down. Some of those vehicles are coming from China. Some of those vehicles are coming from Europe, Korea, and Japan, and places like that. So that's what we're going to see. We're going to see over the next few years cheaper vehicles, but also vehicles that have got much longer range and much faster charging times as well, and much quicker charging times as well.
So Andy, all right, so you mentioned about the misconceptions, and I feel like the misconceptions will continue to be at play. And you also talked about how the government can get involved. So in the US, there is tax credits, right, for individuals who purchase, whether it's a new EV or a used EV, also credits for charging stations. How do you see that evolving? Is there anything that's done in the UK or in Europe to kind of get people into the fold? Because, when you talk about tax credits and you give people money just for getting EVs, you can bring in more people into that pool. But right now, what the US provides is a non-refundable tax credit. So they only get it if they have a tax liability. But how do you see that evolving, and what is being done across the world in terms of getting people into the fold?
There's two things here. There's two sides to this. Number one is getting people into the electric vehicle. So by giving registration credits, tax credits, incentives to purchase, that sort of thing is brilliant. It's number one. And some countries around the world are doing it. Others aren't. In the UK, no, they don't do anything like that at all. But there are incentives in Germany and in France and in China that they do that. And they vary from country to country to country. But I want to take the example in Norway, and from the start of next year, 2025, in Norway, you are not allowed, or you will not be allowed to buy a brand new internal combustion engine vehicle. Now, it's the government has set that up, and that's the law. That's what the law states. So, if you want to buy your nice big diesel or petrol vehicle today in Norway, you can, and run it for another 25 years, which is what Wayne just said about this is a long transition period, and we've got to accept that. But what they're going to do is, on the other side of this, is what governments are going to do is to start to tax the internal combustion engine users and tax them heavily. So that could be in annual road fund licensing, it could be fuel tax, it could be gantries and tags that track where you go and charge you per mile or per kilometre. All that sort of thing could happen. Or it could be that, and this is what is happening, is that cities around the world are going to ban internal combustion engine vehicles from entering the city. Paris is going to do it. There's many other cities around the world that are going to do this over the next few years. And they're going to ban those vehicles from coming into the city. Again, so in effect, rather than giving incentives, which some do, they're actually making it more expensive to run an internal combustion engine vehicle.
So do you also see legislation changing in terms of, okay, when a construction building is going up, they're going to be required to have EV charging stations? Because at the end of the day, like you mentioned, the charging station, the infrastructure is sometimes an issue. So do you see that also changing over time, the legislation in terms of new building construction going up?
And in some countries that is already happening. They already are putting that legislation in place. But it goes beyond that. It goes more than that, because actually this electric conversion isn't just how we run our cars. It's how we heat our houses. It's how we cook our food. And it's moving away from fossil fuels for that. So there'd be more requirement to have solar panels on your house, more requirement to have a battery storage unit for that excess energy that you produce from your solar. And yes, absolutely, charge points, but more importantly than that as well, is also somewhere where you can park your car where it's not on the road. So off-road parking, where those charge points are. How many places do we know, how many cities do we know where they do not have off-road parking? They have to park on the street. So we've got to look, yes, new build houses, absolutely, but also our current housing stock. How do we adapt those to provide charging, or is it the fact that we actually put charging posts in all of the street lamps down the road? But as I said earlier, this is a complete mind shift. It's a complete reset of our thinking of how we use our cars, how we use our vehicles, how we charge, refuel them, and everything.
Which is why I think that on smaller islands, right, because the distances that we travel are much shorter compared to, land masses, larger land masses and stuff. So, and since the EVs have like limited range on a single charge, then it makes small island states really ideal for these shorter commutes and travel distances and so forth. So in terms of the limited distance, the reduced pollution, lower operating cost, the integration with renewable energy, there's a tourism aspect to it, there's a community engagement to it. Like, these are all benefits, I think, of why small islands are more ideally suited for electric vehicles, right? So based on so based on your experience and your travel, I know you travel globally, teaching about EVs and stuff like that. What are some of the specific challenges and opportunities you see in implementing EVs as the primary mode of transportation on small islands? When you consider things that we spoke about, like infrastructure, energy supply, community engagement.
It's, to me, and having travelled extensively, to me, it's the infrastructure that is the biggest key. It's the biggest thing. We have got fuel stations everywhere. Right? We have got thousands of fuel stations all over, countries, states, islands, or whatever, and we need to do much the same with electric, and have those charging points, and have thousands of those charging points all over, the state, the country, the island, whatever it happens to be. And that is the biggest issue, is putting that infrastructure in place. And as I said earlier, this isn't just cars. This is how we heat our homes. This is how we cook our food. It's all going away from fossil fuels, or as the acronym is now, stop burning stuff, and do it using electricity. So the infrastructure is absolutely key. So the electrical supply is absolutely key to all of this, to making this work. And this is not just power generation. This is energy storage from solar, energy storage from wind, from hydropower and stuff like that, where we can generate that power, we can store it somewhere, and then use it later. Because there are times in the day when it's, at night when it's windy, not a lot of people are using energy at, from 2 till 5 in the morning, but the wind's still blowing, the wind turbines are still turning. We've either got to use that energy or store it, or shut the wind turbines down. So that whole infrastructure becomes a key part of what we need.
Do you see, like, most people often ask me the question, right? Because I'm thinking way down the road that it will just become a point where everyone would have a charging station at their home, right? Instead of having to rely on the government, or even the private sector, actually, to put charging station at different points on an island. Because it's a conversation we're having right now in the islands about really expanding electric vehicles. But a lot of people have questions, which hopefully, they're watching this podcast and they were able to get some of the answers to their questions today.
Just to jump in, I think on the islands it's going to be a little bit more difficult because the majority of the people do not own homes, and so it's going to be a challenge, right, for individuals to get that. Andy's laughing, right? A majority of people don't own homes. I think.
Well, it depends on which island you're talking about.
Well, yes, that's correct. That's correct. So I think the infrastructure or the charging capabilities need to be evolved a little bit more. It needs to be innovated. Like, I would see a future where every time an EV stops, it somehow initiates some type of charging mechanism or something built into the EV versus having to have like a built EV station. It won't work for everyone, and especially in the Caribbean.
Yeah, absolutely. I completely agree with you on that one, Cherie, because not everybody will be able to charge at home. Not everybody will be able to charge at work. And one of the solutions that is being looked at, is being investigated, is actually having induction charging built into the road surface. So as you're traveling down the road, you have a charging plate on the vehicle that's accepting charge from another induction plate that's built into the road. And I know they're trialing that in quite a few European states, European countries over the next few years. It's expensive, because it's built into the road, but everybody can benefit from it, and everybody can get charged as they drive down the road, and that's another solution. Or you have a solution whereby the charging plate is built into the car park, so when you park at work, and you park your car over the plate, it then accepts charge and it's charging up whilst you're at work. But this is something that, and I do quite a lot of work for some friends of mine who are teachers, and I occasionally get asked to go into schools and talk to their pupils about electric vehicles and what's happening, and we talk for about 20 minutes on the vehicles themselves. But the rest of the time, probably another 50, 60 minutes, we're talking about the career opportunities for these kids who are, looking at career choices. They're 13, 14, 15 years of age. And what I'm saying to them is look at where the investment is going. Where's the money? Follow the money. And the investment is going into the electricity generation and the electricity supply industries, be that nuclear, be that hydro, wind, solar, or whatever, and then the supply of that power to the consumer. That's where the investment's going. And it could be heat pumps in houses, it could be into electric vehicles. But follow the money, and if you get into that industry from school or from college or from university, then potentially you've got a career for life throughout that. And there's going to be some amazing discoveries over the next 10, 15 years. That technical discovery, the technical competency and discovery of these networks is going up like that. It's almost vertical, because they are discovering so much and they're doing so many changes, and that's where the money is. That's where the investment's going.
If someone were to come to you and ask you, Andy, what I want to buy an electric vehicle, which one do you recommend?
Well, a couple of questions. First is, number one, how much money have you got? Number two is
Right.
what type of use are you going to give it? But that's the same for any vehicle. Whether you're, I couldn't turn around to you and say, go and buy an internal combustion engine vehicle if it doesn't work for you. If you want to take it off road all the time, and you're a construction company, you've got a completely different use case to my wife, who does 4,000 miles a year and only wants a small car. So you've got to look at all of that. Personally, for me right now, the car that I would like to be driving is being sensible, Polestar, which is part of Volvo. But if money was no object, I'd be in a Porsche Taycan.
Okay. Get me one too. But I was going to ask Sherry with her her company vehicle that she has, right? That's changing mobility in the Caribbean with the peer-to-peer car renting and stuff. Like, how do you see the platform contributing, Sherry, to the adoption of electric vehicles? Like, what opportunities do you see for integrating EVs into your business model?
Sure, thanks for the question. So I would say, first of all, vehicle, we're not just focused on transforming how people rent cars. We're also focused on developing like sustainable solutions across the Caribbean. And we think that EV plays a key part in our vision for a greener, more sustainable future. And we also do see a significant opportunity to lead in terms of encouraging both car owners and travelers to embrace EV technology. So if we can make it more accessible and convenient to rent, we can help to increase the adoption by showcasing not just the environmental impact, but the actual cost savings that they can have over time in terms of fuel, purchasing fuel as well as maintenance expenses. But as we've all been alluding to in this conversation, there will be challenges because infrastructure development would be a huge issue in the Caribbean in terms of the charging stations. And for right now in the Caribbean, the initial cost of EVs are high compared to traditional vehicles. So while you might see costs going down in other areas, other regions, in the Caribbean, it's probably the opposite. Cars are twice as expensive. So we see an issue there. But we can work with local governments and private entities in terms of building out what that infrastructure looks like, and also providing incentives for car owners to list EVs on our platform, whether that's, commission, reduction. We can look at different ways in which we can incentivize car owners to list EVs on the platform. So we're not thinking of vehicles just a renting platform. We're thinking of how we can create positive change in the personal mobility space, paving a way for a more sustainable, environmental friendly Caribbean.
I found that the cost to rent electric vehicles is very high. I was in Bermuda the other day, and one of the things that struck me was that the only cars that I could have gotten to rent was an electric vehicle. Sherry, you and I spoke about that the other day.
Yes.
And it was very expensive. I mean, Bermuda itself is an expensive place to live, but my God, I couldn't even get an EV to rent, Andy. That was a reasonable price within the budget. I hope people from Bermuda don't call me after that.
They're more expensive than traditional cars. So yes, in essence, you're going to probably pay a higher rate for the rental. And so that's where working with local governments and private entities to figure out ways in which we can incentivize individuals to purchase these vehicles so that they don't have to turn around and rent it for a substantial amount to travelers. So it's a partnership. It's going to be a partnership thing.
Right. I don't know. Have you been to Bermuda, Andy?
No, not had that pleasure yet. So hopefully looking
No?
forward to that in the future.
Okay. Well, I hope that we can invite you to think it soon, because I don't know if you heard, but we're partnering with the college, the Clarence Fitzroy Bryant College in St. Kitts, and we're going to have a Center for Research, Innovation, and Capacity Development in St. Kitts for both solar. One side is going to be solar and one side is going to be electric vehicles. So we're hoping to have like a cohort pretty soon, trainer programs. So that will be your opportunity, Andy, to come to St. Kitts and we get some training done there.
Just jump in there because I had solar fitted on my house last year, and it has been absolutely incredible. The difference that it has made to my energy bills has been enormous. And yes, it was an investment. It was an investment, but it's an investment in the property. It's investment in clean energy. But it has been an absolutely amazing, just an amazing experience of having solar and a battery on the house. So yeah, if anybody's questioning that, then go for it.
So you're not just talking the talk, you're walking the walk also when it comes to EVs.
Well, that's it. I did have two cars. I did have a hybrid, and I've got a plug-in hybrid. I've just sold my hybrid car, and then that will be replaced with a full EV later in the year. So I will have a plug-in hybrid and a full EV later in the year. So and then obviously, I'm charging that off solar, so that energy is coming for free. I don't pay for that energy, and therefore I'm getting use of that car. It's not costing me anything to fuel it.
Mm-hmm. Tell us, just for the audience, what's the difference between your plug-in hybrid and the hybrid?
Well, the hybrid, the original hybrid, basically was just a way of assisting the vehicle, helping the vehicle perform better and save fuel. The plug-in hybrid actually does quite a long distance on electric only, and then so if I'm doing short journeys every day, I hardly use any fuel at all. If I'm doing a longer journey, then the electrics will take me so far, then the engine kicks in, and the engine will take me however far I need to go.
So, as we try to wrap up this conversation, do you know of any notable trends or developments in EV design and manufacturing that you think that our listeners should be aware of?
I can say this because Toyota have announced it, that they are producing their next generation of electric vehicles will have a very significant change in chemistry in the battery, and that will be significantly smaller, lighter, with good range, and also easy charging. A lot of people talk about hydrogen and hydrogen as a fuel source. For long distance, absolutely, it's going to be good. But for shorter distance, electric is better, because with hydrogen, what we're doing is we're changing energy from one type of energy to another to then take it back again. So we're changing electricity to hydrogen, and then we put it into the car and we change it back to electricity again. And every time we change that energy source, it takes efficiency. But for long distance users, hydrogen will be really, really good. So for 70%, 75% of the vehicle owners, vehicle drivers out there, electric will be fine. For long distance users, hydrogen, and potentially there may be something else in the future.
I'm looking at the headline. It says Toyota boasts new battery technology with 745-mile range and 10-minute charging time.
That's it. Yeah. That's
So
new,
that's what
new
I'm
battery.
seeing here.
Yeah, that's new battery chemistry that's going to take that and do that long range, but also that very, very rapid charging.
Yeah, I'm seeing here it's solid state batteries that they're using for these vehicles. That's really gonna impact, I think it's gonna have a huge impact on mass EV adoption, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And I know there's some work being done, as you mentioned, on the hydrogen batteries and so forth. That seems to be a big deal. I know the current administration in the U.S. has they give, I think it was $8 billion to establish some hydrogen hubs across the U.S. So a lot of work, a lot of research is being done on hydrogen batteries and fuel cells now. So I think that's going to be huge for the industry, and it's probably gain a lot of traction. Now tell us about the recycling, right? Because this is one thing that a lot of people normally ask about, and I'm going to give you the opportunity to tell us what that aspect of your business and the recycling industry for these batteries after they're dead, after they're of no use. What do you do with the batteries? What do you do in terms of recycling for EVs?
As far as that's concerned, as far as recycling is concerned, there's actually four things to look at. We've got reuse. So a vehicle comes to the end of its life, that battery could be reused in something else, in another vehicle, in another device. We can remanufacture it. So that battery may have a fault, that we can take it apart and we can repair that battery, and then it's good to go into reuse. We can then repurpose it, so it could go into second life. So it could be battery storage, static storage for wind farms, for solar farms, or something of that nature. And the fourth one, deliberately the fourth one, is recycle. When these batteries reach the end of life in a vehicle, they've still got a massive lifespan ahead of them, particularly in static storage. So recycle is right down at the end, right at the bottom, deliberately. And recycle basically then means that we get as much as we can out of that battery, and it then goes back into producing and the production of brand new batteries. So all of the elements, all of the rare earth metals, the nickel, the lithium, the cobalt, and all the rest of it comes out, gets repurposed, recycled, and goes into a brand new battery and forms a brand new battery.
Awesome. All right. Well, do you have any other follow-up comments, Sherry, before we close out here?
No, thank you so much for this insightful conversation. I had a great time, and nice to meet you, Andy.
Yeah,
Yes.
thank you,
So,
Wayne, thank you, Sherry.
As our conversation on electric vehicles come to a close, it's clear that we are witnessing a transformative shift in the way that we think about transportation. But the journey doesn't end here. It's up to each of us to embrace the possibilities of electric mobility and drive change in our communities. So I'd like to extend a heartfelt thank you to our special guest, Andy, for sharing his expertise and insights with us today. And a big shout out to my co-host, Sherry Williams, for her invaluable contributions to this conversation. So don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow us on Apple Podcasts, Audible, Amazon, and iHeartRadio for more enlightening discussions on topics that are shaping our world. So until next time, let's keep driving towards a brighter and cleaner future. Stay charged, and we'll see you on the road.